Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast on the internet that has both the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. My name is Ryan, I will be your host, and this season is, of course, 1984, quite possibly the single greatest year in the history of movies. I don't know if anybody's ever said that before, but I'm going to say it now. I'm going to plant that flag. 1939, go screw. It's 1984 from here on out. As we do every week, this is a film podcast / game show. So my panelists tonight will be competing for points and prizes. They will get points if they say smart-sounding things, use long words, compliment me, all of the rest. Okay. Our first panelist tonight is, I believe, the winner of last week. If our guest wasn't on, it's Greg.
Hey, yep. If it had not been for the guest, I would have won.
Are you picking up on a theme this season that guests are kind of crushing?
Guests are doing pretty well on the show, I have to say. But you know what? I think that's because I'll tell you what the secret is. They all watch a documentary about the movie.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of points in watching a documentary about the movie, and the guests are often like, "Well, in the documentary I saw, the director said." And it's just hard to argue against that, Ryan.
I mean, just say
no. It isn't. You just go.
He didn't say that.
Nah, man, and then I do the thumbs down.
Our last place / co-host last week, because I had a bathroom accident, is Mike. Mike, you're here.
I'm here. I'm happy you're back for at least 10 minutes, and then I'm prepared to take over.
All right, and our third panelist is the one, the only, the co-creator of the #1 film podcast in history, best friend to Ryan Johnson. It's Adam Kempenaar.
Hi, everyone.
Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here to talk about a movie I watched 100 times when I was a kid. And I apparently have big shoes to fill because the guests have been winning, but this is a podcast, not a knitting class, and I will show no mercy.
Is that a phrase? Is that a real phrase?
That's a real phrase from the movie we're going to talk about.
From
Ryan.
Karate Kid. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You should give Adam a point for
well,
that.
I mean,
deduct one from yourself.
They didn't know what podcasts were then. I may have changed that. The movie wasn't prophetic.
As the host, I didn't have to watch the movie, so
okay.
You guys are going to fill me in on this kid?
Yeah, okay.
Karate?
Well, man, Ryan, okay. We open on Newark, New Jersey.
Okay, I got it then.
The best city in the world.
Ain't no people like New Jersey people.
Let's get to, I want to start, before we dive into the movie, I want to start with like our the overwhelming question throughout the season, which is, and Adam, I'm going to start with you. How much did this movie impact you as a kid when it first came out? And did watching it this week change at all? Like, do you still think that it is a good, kick-ass movie?
I'm happy to say I still think it's a good movie. Now, do I think it's as good as I did when I was 9 years old when I saw it? I mean, I think that's the sweet spot for watching The Karate Kid, quite frankly. And it's a movie that had a significant impact. Myself and my closest friends, we signed up for 1 or 2 karate lessons, I'm pretty sure, after this movie. Didn't tough it out. We didn't have a Mr. Miyagi-like teacher, but we thought about it, and we used to, you know, we'd spend the night, and we'd decide to have all-valley tournament karate championships and try not to bloody the other's nose too badly. So it's a movie that I was very much into back in 1984 and was very excited. I don't know if we'll get there. I was very excited to see the sequel when it came out. After that, you know, then I got into hair metal and stopped paying attention to The Karate Kid.
Yeah, it's a wonky franchise that we will talk about later. What about you, Mike? Does this movie hold up?
I know I saw it as a kid. I have the vaguest of memories. I think the first 3 are slammed together in my head, and only as an adult have gotten heavily into the latest reimagining of the franchise, which I know we're talking about later, so I won't now. But yeah, so having like zero emotional attachment, vaguely remembering it, this movie fucking rules. I was so shocked the whole time that I was like, I'm liking this? This is crazy. There's not karate for an hour and 15 minutes in this movie, and it's called The Karate Kid. How bold of them.
We just had so much patience back then.
Yeah.
Like, TikToks, man. Greg, what about you? Is this a big one for you?
It was, but I was way more a fan of Karate Kid 2, and let me tell you why. Because when I was a kid, I judged movies solely by the action scenes. So much like former President Trump, who it is said had a copy of Bloodsport in his office where he would just make people watch only the fight scenes. He never watched the rest. As a kid, I was only into the fight scenes. And so Karate Kid 2 was the movie for me. But I liked Karate Kid 1, but I think it was just too slow because of what you just said. This time around, that's the show, baby. Man, what a likable cast of characters. What like sort of an unconventionally, but I think ultimately rewardingly paced movie. You want to spend time with these people, and you get a lot of time with them, and you care by the time the kicking comes around. And honestly, there are some good kicks in this movie. Like some of the fight scenes, really, like there's a pretty good karate in this movie. And so the part of me that will always be 9 years old was still really into that as well. So I think I like it as much as I did as a kid, maybe even more, for all the same reasons, but then also a whole host of new reasons, which is that like the characters have a tremendous amount of depth, and then there's a tremendous amount of sweetness, and it makes the movie a very positive experience.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I could not believe how much I liked this movie. I couldn't believe how much I didn't remember, despite having seen it thousands of times. Like, honestly, if you asked me if Mr. Miyagi's wife and child died in the past, I'd be like, no, they're never brought up.
I remember there was a part where he was sad,
yeah.
you know, because I would just like kind of get up and walk into the other room for a little bit, come back and he'd be crying, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is definitely the sad part. I feel like I remembered every single time Mr. Miyagi spoke, because Mr. Miyagi was like an extremely important character to me as a kid, so I remembered all of that. But whenever it's just like Daniel and his mom, dude, 404, file not found. Yeah. I had like no memory of any of that at all.
Mike, how many times over the course of this podcast, I'm going to guess 20, has Greg revealed that basically 10-year-old Greg is the same as Donald Trump now?
Yeah.
Are they the same person?
It is weird. Greg is full of so many like almost likable anecdotes of Trump, which is unsettling. When he's like, he made people watch Bloodsport, I went, all right, so the guy's not all bad. My older brother used to do that to me. Same movie.
Oh, Christ. We're gonna sink the boat now. Congratulations, guys. We have to take a break because I want to dive into this. So when we come back, The Karate Kid. In the early 80s, Columbia Pictures was looking for a project for Rocky director John G. Avildson. They hired Robert Mark Kamen to write something for him, and Kamen decided to base it on his own life. When Kamen was 17, he was beat up by a gang of bullies. He decided to take up karate, but when his first teacher was a little too crease-like, he decided to quit that one and found a Japanese man who did not speak English but could teach him the Okinawan art of Goju-ryu. Avildson said, hell yeah, and proceeded to turn down every single hot Hollywood actor in order to cast Ralph Macchio as Daniel LaRusso. Thanks to Kamen's history, he fought hard to cast Happy Days star Pat Morita in the mentor role, and it only resulted in an Academy Award nomination and one of the most endearing characters of all time. The Karate Kid was a smash success, becoming a top 5 movie of the 1984 box office and spawning a multimedia franchise, which we will break down later in the show. That is the 6th time we've said now.
Not yet, listener. You have to wait.
Hold on to your butts.
First, let's get to the core of the film. Taste buds, I ask you this. For a movie called The Karate Kid, there's very little karate in it. Would it have been disastrous if one of those other actors were cast as Daniel LaRusso or Mr. Miyagi? What about the performances of the actors or the relationship of the characters helps make this a classic?
I think so. The reason they didn't want Morita was Happy Days, which is I was much more a Happy Days kid than a Karate Kid, and take what
that
you will from that.
explains so much.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a surprise.
And again, I have to say, I did not have cable till high school, so I thought Happy Days was a news show that I got to watch on Saturday afternoons. But I think having him have a comic background, stand-up comedy background, and have been in Happy Days, there's such a warmth that I think makes Miyagi important there. Because when he is stern, by the time he's stern with Daniel, he's already been warm and caring so many times. So there's not even a hint of like crease-like tendencies, which I do think like all fighting coaches, if you're a butthole kid, you might be like, they're just a jerk. But I think so. His background, there's a warmth and a real quiet loveliness to him that I think another actor could not imbue.
The opening shots of the movie are wide shots of the car, moving across the country, first leaving New Jersey and then moving across the country. And then the mom pulls up to their new apartment and she gets out, and then the camera pulls in tight on Ralph Macchio's face. And in that moment, you are 100% sure that was the right casting choice. His just kind of looking pained about where he is and not happy with his mom right now, but kind of still trying to be a little difficult, but not too difficult. Having a little bit of that edge to him. He carries so many scenes just by his personal charisma. And that's without even getting into, as you said, one of the most iconic characters of all time. In, Mr. Miyagi.
I'll echo both of you. I think both of the performances, and I know we're going to talk about performances, and we'll talk more about Avildson, so I don't want to divulge too much, but both the performances here are really good. I don't remember Pat Morita. I knew he was on Happy Days, and I watched that as a kid too, but I didn't remember him as a character, so I feel like watching The Karate Kid was the first time I saw him on screen, and that warmth, I think that's the right word. He's got a tremendous sense of humor. He doesn't say much, right? So when he speaks, you do remember it. You do pay attention, unlike Daniel maybe, and he and his mom, they talk a lot. But you mentioned that opening, and that opening shot, that's something I had completely forgotten about. I didn't remember at all that Avildson took the time to show us that journey west. And it's even interesting that we get a tremendous delay before we see Ralph Macchio's face. We only hear him. So there's kind of this withholding, almost like with a classic Hollywood star, where we're just going to hear his voice, we're going to see him in long shot, but we really don't get that close-up until they actually arrive. And I do think all of that supports what you guys were saying quite accurately earlier as well, which is by the time, or as we get through this movie, the patience it has, the time it takes to get to know these characters. The fact that, for example, even the mom isn't someone, Randy Heller, I believe is the actress. The fact that she's not just there to, either be a scold or to worry too much about him, but seems like a real mom from the 80s. And her desire to go west, to start this new life. She's invested so much in this trip and starting this new life that actually it's very subtle, but it's all about the characters and that world building. It puts tremendous pressure on Daniel, right? For Daniel's already got all this pressure on him. Everything's going wrong. But then you add in the fact that it means so much for his mom to stay here and to make the best of it. He has to figure it out. Going back to Newark isn't an option.
And the two of them together do such an incredible job in such a quick, short amount of screen time of developing their relationship. And it just screams, just based on experience, single mom to me. Yeah. Where they are, it's still her baby. Yeah. And it's also her best friend. And it's also, the man of the house. And not in a weird way, but just, they are close in so many different ways. And it's established
bit together.
Yeah, they bit together.
Yeah.
She just and there's so much trust there, my mom never said to me, okay, well, hopefully you get home before midnight. They just trust each other that much. And it's because
the way she says, you can not help me unpack so you can go to that beach
I know.
party.
Right. I remember saying that.
Come on.
And he even
sweet.
And her
what a good
smile.
16-year-old. Yeah, her smile. And he's like, are you sure? What 16-year-old was like, no, I should hang out with my mom and be helpful. Which is why when he says they get into it and he's like, you don't want to hear the truth, Ma. You just want me to tell you how great this place is. It's not like a petulant kid. It is that's a pretty mature step back, looking at the whole angle and talking to your mom about it.
And she's holding some stuff back, right? I was a little confused because he tells the first guy he meets, his first friend who bails on him almost immediately, that she's there for a computer job, but she is just a server in a Chinese restaurant. Waiting for a computer job to come out.
She's not the server there. She was eating lunch there.
Well, no, I told her, they say, get back over here. You have to go back to work.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, she was on her break.
And she talks about, getting to take management classes or something. And I assumed they're at the restaurant. But he does say something about computers, and she suggests that maybe she's going to have this new, better life professionally if she goes into the restaurant business instead.
She moved across the country to be a waitress?
I know. I thought that too. I did think that watching it. But can I just insert real quick? One of the funniest parts of the movie is that friend Freddie, instantly makes a friend, instantly invites him to the beach. And here's the thing. They go to the beach. These bad guys on bikes show up. They're irritating this girl. Daniel stands up to him. Yes, he gets his ass kicked, but he stands up to him, and the response is, "Oh man, where'd you meet this loser, Freddie?" Like one of those guys would ever dream of standing up to Billy, or call me William Zabka, right? But he does, and yet they just leave him. They're bleeding.
And
in
the guy
sand.
they had fun with all day, right? Like
Exactly.
soccer tricks,
And
they
then
were
we
having
never
a
see
blast.
him again. Freddie's gone the entire movie.
Good. Fuck Freddie. He does
I know.
everything too quickly.
Meanwhile, Freddie has one of the most outrageous shirts in the history of cinema, I think. We first meet this kid, and his shirt is 2 pigs in flagrante, and then above it says, "Making bacon."
That's right.
This is a 16-year-old kid just walking around his apartment complex.
That's the 80s, though. Like, I'm surprised it wasn't some, slur on the Ayatollah or something. Real quick, because, Daniel and his mom is an incredible relationship, but I do want to get to the Miyagi of it all. In so many of these movies, the student becomes the master. But is this the first, if not the best, version of a movie where the mentor sort of stays the main character? Like, is this something that, Yoda and Morpheus and Gandalf are sort of, jealous of this part?
Well, because they are all dealing with prophecy, right? And Miyagi isn't. He opens up because it's clearly he's a man dealing with decades of grief and trauma, and he's isolated himself. So he opens up and gets warmer because he sees something in Daniel. So that's what Daniel's providing for him. It's not just oh, you can teach me. It's Daniel's man, you're my best friend, and is not ashamed. He's found a weird, specifically kind of precocious 16-year-old that is more vulnerable and warm than anybody should be. And Daniel clearly finds a father figure. So, but Miyagi stays there's no way, because they've only trained for 2 months. There's no way Daniel could become the master here.
No.
That's a further movie for sure.
And I think just by adding layers and layers and layers of complexity into Mr. Miyagi, we find out, and they don't lean on it. There's not super expository scenes, and in fact, we just get snippets of it really. But clearly, he joins the army after his family is interred. So he fights in World War II on the side of the United States. He says he's not Japanese. He's Okinawanese, which is a whole history that you could open up into where Okinawa falls in sort of the history of fighting against Japan, being made to be part of Japan. And you get all these things as just these little snippets, but you see this man is just like a human you'd meet in the real world, is a universe. And the movie only shows you these small snippets, but the small snippets make you think there's so much more here. Mm-hmm. I'd love to know about this guy that we ultimately don't get to because there's not enough time to go.
Well, we got to get to that costume party.
Yeah.
Daniel's got to dress like a star.
Yeah, the real karate was the friends we made. Learning karate. There's no doubt about it. And I'm going to jump ahead. Spoilers for those who haven't seen The Karate Kid and might be listening to this. It is telling. I didn't really think of it that way. I mean, Ryan, did you kind of suggest that he almost becomes the main character of the film?
At least, not that. I mean, he doesn't arc the most.
It's about teachers. The conflict is between 2 teachers and
right.
2 styles of teaching. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that there's an argument that he's definitely at the center.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt how prominent he is and how much we, certainly as viewers, then responded to him and responded to him now. But I was going to bring up that because I was thinking about a category I think might be coming up about Avildson as the director here. And Rocky, which I revisited 4 or 5 years ago, another movie I thought still held up pretty well. That movie, how does that movie end? It ends with a big fight, ends with a big showdown, just like this movie does. The main character wins, though we can talk about the perspective on that or the level of winning, right? By losing, he still kind of wins in Rocky, and here we have someone who definitely wins. But what's the last shot of Rocky? The last shot is a freeze frame of a close-up of Sly Stallone
The main character of that movie.
embracing Adrian.
Hell yeah.
The main character. How does The Karate Kid end?
Hell
Same
yeah.
freeze frame shot, except it's Pat Morita. It's Pat Morita. It's Mr. Miyagi smiling. Is the last face we see, the image that sends us out of the theater feeling amazing about ourselves. It's Mr. Miyagi reacting, not Daniel LaRusso.
And I read that Pat Morita was method. They did not freeze frame it. He just stood that.
He just
still.
he's still
Some
standing.
say he's
Well,
still standing there in
he-
Reseda today.
He clearly has magical powers. The movie shows us that.
Yeah.
He can freeze time as well.
But I did read that they did the original ending, not like that was released, but just in the editing bay, was a freeze frame on the crowd carrying Daniel, and then somebody suggested that, and the freeze frame on Miyagi, and they're like, nope, that's it. That is the ending right there. Just that proud, almost smile that he does so well. It's like the warmth and the stoicism coming together in that one frame.
Yeah, the movie is an exploration of him, and it to even the fact that Pat Morita could steal the show from Ralph Macchio, who really, I mean, is in every other sense, like the movie seems to understand, the camera seems to understand Ralph Macchio as the center of the movie. But the fact that he could do that is just a testament to how charming and powerful his performance.
Trivia.
That's right, Robot. It is trivia time. Gentlemen, as always, if you know the answer, please ring in by saying your name. Wait till I'm done saying the question, because otherwise you'd be rude. Trivia number 1. Which martial art movie legend allegedly turned down the part of Kreese because he didn't want karate trainers to be shown in a negative light?
Adam.
Great.
Adam.
Chuck Norris?
Chuck Norris is correct.
Wow.
He's the answer to everything. He's correct about everything. So
The referee in the movie is Pat E. Johnson, a former student of Chuck Norris. Name someone who was taught karate by a different student of Chuck Norris.
Someone who's taught karate by a different... Mike.
Yeah, Mike?
You, Ryan?
It's me. Good job, Mike.
Whoa.
I'm calling shenanigans.
Swear to God. Which Akira Kurosawa mainstay auditioned for the part of Miyagi but didn't get it?
Ryan. Greg. What the fuck?
I'm going to say Greg. Go.
Mifune?
Mifune is correct.
You know,
You gotta give me the point for that, though.
that's so sad. It's because he couldn't speak English well enough. But I feel like he could have, because there's just a few words here and there.
I think he was too manic, too. Like,
Yeah.
hard for him to, like, suppress all that energy. Okay, so you say Greg when you know it, okay?
Man, dude, that was weird.
Should we make it
I
easy
don't-
and I'll say Ryan when we think we know the answer?
Dude.
That's not easy, Mike. That makes it harder. Which famous winner turned down the part of Daniel LaRusso to star in 1983's Grizzly 2, Revenge?
Greg.
Greg.
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen is correct.
Yeah. that makes sense.
Yes.
What year was Grizzly 2 Revenge released?
Greg.
Mike.
Greg.
1986.
Incorrect. Mike?
1989.
Incorrect. Adam?
I'm going to say 1988.
The 1983 movie was released in the year 2020.
It's like a time capsule movie.
Karate Kid is also a member of what comic book superhero team?
Mike.
Mike.
Justice
ring it in
League?
without knowing. Incorrect.
Greg.
Greg.
I'm gonna say the Teen Titans.
Incorrect. It is DC, Adam. No,
I'm going to go Justice League.
that's what Mike said. It
Oh,
is the
did he
League
say
of
Justice?
Ex-
Then DC, I am completely lost then. Sorry.
The League of Extraordinary. Nope.
Legion of Superheroes?
Legion of Superheroes. What does Daniel do after Wax On?
Greg.
Greg.
Wax off.
He does not, Greg. It is not that kind of movie. That is filthy that you would say that.
Were you surprised how well he could wax off with his left hand?
No, I'm also like that. Which Cobra Kai actor, descriptions are fine, actor, like, he was in this movie in Cobra Kai, had to be put in a chokehold because he wouldn't stop freaking out at the tournament after or in between takes?
Mike.
Adam.
It could be so many people. I'm going Chad McQueen.
It is Chad McQueen.
Which one
one
is he? Is he the blonde, real
Oh,
annoying
he's
douchebag?
Dutch.
Dutch,
He's only
yeah.
the best. He's only the best performance in the movie.
I like how they're like Bobby, Tommy, Johnny.
Yeah, Bobby,
and
Tommy.
Dutch, and they're all blonde.
Chad McQueen's father was a pallbearer at which martial arts movie master's funeral?
Adam.
Mike.
Adam.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. How much older is Randy Heller than Ralph Macchio?
Greg.
Adam.
Greg.
13 years.
13 is incorrect.
Fudge.
Adam.
I'm going to say 15.
15. Mike. He said 13. Adam said 15. What do you think it is?
14 years.
14 is correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because Ralph Macchio is
we
like
were right
20
on it.
in this.
But he's so scrawny. Like he looks
He
so
is,
yeah.
dude.
They look so young that like most of the high schoolers, they nailed it.
Martin Kove jokingly refers to his character as Who on steroids. That's Kreese, by the way. As Who on steroids.
Greg.
Greg.
Iceman from Top Gun.
Good. No.
Right, though?
That was good.
Yeah.
Mike.
Mike?
Dutch from Predator.
No.
I
Adam,
got
no?
nothing. No.
Han Solo.
Okay.
Han
No, that
Solo.
makes a lot of sense.
That
Yeah.
guy has
Wow.
no
Delusional.
Yeah.
Is there a funnier way of describing someone as blank on steroids?
Greg.
Mike.
Greg?
No.
No, there's not. It's
No,
just
yeah.
the funniest way to say something. The Karate Kid series had a fourth movie, The Next Karate Kid, starring what two-time Oscar winner?
Mike.
Greg.
Mike.
Hilary Swank.
Hilary Swank. What was the name of the proposed fifth movie in the series where Daniel LaRusso would shoot ink at his opponent?
Greg.
Greg.
The Karate Squid.
It is the Karate Squid, Greg. What was the name of the proposed sixth movie in the series? This is when everything gets stupid. Right?
No, don't. No, there's real answers only from here on out. These
What
are
was-
real questions.
What was the name of the proposed sixth movie in the series where Daniel LaRusso was like not that great?
Greg.
Mike.
Oh,
Greg.
come on.
Karate Mid.
The Karate Kid.
That's good.
What was the name of the proposed seventh movie in the series where Daniel LaRusso was played by Sebastian Bach?
Adam,
Adam.
I mentioned hair metal earlier.
Yes,
the,
yeah.
the Karate Skid.
The Karate
Row?
Kid. I'm gonna give what was the name of the proposed ninth movie in the series where Daniel LaRusso would be played by Donnie Wahlberg?
Mike.
Adam.
Mike.
The Karate New Kid on the Block.
That is correct. What was the name of 15 more guys? What was the name of the proposed 10th movie in the series where Daniel LaRusso hates Bud Light?
Greg.
Greg.
The Karate Kid Rock.
That is correct.
I feel like we missed the 8th film in the series. Am I wrong? Or did they jump over that? Okay.
That's the lost one. They lost that one.
What was the name of the proposed 8th movie in the series where Daniel LaRusso would throw a house party?
Greg.
Adam.
Greg.
Karate Kid in Play.
The Karate Kid in
That's
Play.
good.
What? Okay, here we go. What was the name of the proposed 12th movie in the series where Daniel LaRusso was played by Charlie Chaplin?
Adam.
Adam.
Wait, the Kid?
The Karate Kid is correct.
It rolls right off the tongue.
It does.
And what was the name of the second movie in the series where Daniel accompanies Mr. Miyagi to Okinawa?
Mike.
Mike.
The Karate Kid 2.
That's
Yeah.
the Karate Kid 2, yeah.
Oh my God, I was so worried.
You set us up for that.
Yeah, it was 15 minutes of setup just for that. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to get back into the Karate Kid. Sylvester Stallone would often joke that the screenwriter ripped off Rocky, which shares its director with the Karate Kid. Stallone, man, so funny. Looking back on it now, is Avildson just aping his Oscar winner, replacing boxing gloves with headbands? Or is the Karate Kid its own and perhaps better? I'm going to say that right now. Is it a better movie than Rocky?
I think so often things could be weakened when you aim them at kids, right? You add a little kid sidekick and it softens something. But I think because everybody still takes this very seriously, and it's not like they take the kids' problems as real. And I think that doesn't make it infantilizing. And while still paying attention to the adult relationship. So all of it, this is why it feels like no matter what age you are, you can enjoy this movie. And that's why maybe, I haven't seen Rocky in so long, that it is a better movie. You know what? It is. It is a better movie than Rocky.
Adam, is that sacrilege?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I think Rocky is a very good movie, but I think this is a very good movie. I wasn't somehow anticipating this question, and it's a very tough one to answer. I mean, can the protege ever really be better, ever beat the mentor? I mean,
yes,
the fact is,
because when Dick Grayson is Batman, he's a better Batman than
Okay,
Bruce Wayne.
I'll take your word
Sorry,
for it.
Keep going.
but can the movie that was directly influenced by the other, it would not exist. The Karate Kid would not exist without the template that Rocky set. Now, can it improve on that? Sure, but it wouldn't exist without it. So I'm a little more inclined to give the belt here to Rocky.
But we're talking about a guy who, as far as I know, and I just looked up his filmography, like really only made 2 movies that people watch and talk about, right? Like it was Rocky and then it was Karate Rocky. What do we see in these 2 movies that like sort of, if you had to argue that he was like a secondary master or whatever, what do we see here that like Avildson's doing?
Love for Italians.
Okay.
I think he really does capture the essence of like the little guy trying to fit into a much bigger system, and that those victories where someone who is like such a fish out of water. I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that in 1984, moving from New Jersey to California really was like a dramatic change. They were extremely different places, and also like again, a lot has changed since '84, but like. He's clearly like singled out by people for being Italian. Like people notice that he's Italian. He and his mom certainly notice that everybody else is blonde. And so like we see him trying to hustle to like make it in this world that doesn't actually want very much to accept him naturally, and then be drawn to Mr. Miyagi, who also feels that way and is experiencing that at the same time. And I think that it's that sort of like very human aspect that is plugged into sports drama that it connects the two movies and makes them both kind of a masterpiece, because it like unifies those two ideas.
Well, I haven't watched a documentary about the Karate Kid, if one exists, nor have I watched the documentary that was made about the director of the Karate Kid, John G. Avildson, but I know it's called King of the Underdog. And it is because of these two films, but some of those other films where I know, even though I'm not familiar with them, I know they are dealing with kind of working class heroes or working class anti-heroes, which is another element we get here with both of these characters, and a little bit of a, that blue collar and fish out of water element that we get here, in addition to it being an underdog sports story. So we get that underdog element without a doubt, obviously, right? But even going back to that opening with Avildson, it's funny, which I said I didn't remember, and I didn't, but it's not like the most glorious camera shot of all time or anything, but the fact that he brings a little bit of like classic Hollywood filmmaking to this movie and to this little scene of this family just leaving Newark at the beginning, and then later the couple, Allie and Daniel, leaving golf and stuff, he has a moment where we get this crane shot. We get this crane shot that goes up in the sky and shows them leaving the parking lot, leaving in the streets of Newark, and it just makes it all feel a little bit bigger, just a little bit more important.
Like there could be fairy tales without CGI and monsters and stuff. Like,
how about the hand cam at the beginning of the karate tournament into a dolly shot where he's moving along, the action in this long take of
Alfonso
him coming into the karate tournament, and the action and the life that he gets with the hand cam and the long shot with the conversation, and they're like cutting through the crowd, and then he goes up, and obviously he gets up on a dolly, and then the dolly swings around, and you get like this elevated view, and suddenly you go from the human to kind of like the more elevated. That is an amazing shot. Like,
it captures,
there's a lot here.
It captures what Daniel's feeling so well, because I did not remember him feeling so lost by the time the end of the movie comes on. I was like, no, he knows he is the Karate Kid at this point, but he's still like, I don't know karate, and like he feels so overwhelmed, and the camera work and his emotions play beautifully off together. Then. I
mean, they're like, oh, black belts only, and Miyagi's like, oh, he's a black belt, and I would be shitting myself if I was right.
And honestly, something I didn't appreciate, it's hard to imagine this, but something I didn't appreciate as much as a kid was he's so tiny compared to everybody else. Even his stance is like he's all tucked into himself because he's so afraid that he's got to get kicked by one of these kids with like huge legs who are basically twice his size.
I think so much of it too that you guys are all hitting is that. The patience that we're seeing here it speaks to the timelessness of what he's doing. And I do think that Rocky and the Karate Kid specifically, as 70s and 80s as they feel respectively, are so could fit in any era as far as the storytelling goes. It's not flashy necessarily. It works whenever. Like, you could put this in the movie theaters in any era, and I do think that it would work.
Can I tell you another shot that absolutely took my breath away? When Mr. Miyagi is finally training Daniel to throw punches, and he's dressed like a 1920s catcher. They're standing beside what looks like a lake, and the water is like the sun is glinting off the water. Very nice golden rays off the water. His truck is parked just so the angles and the lines are perfect, and the shot is like hyper composed but very, very beautiful. It's like a still life painting or like a landscape painting or something.
That's gorgeous. But what about the Looney Tunes action of Daniel and his mom having dinner and the Cobra Kai boys in the background?
Yeah.
So, that's hard to do too.
Yeah.
if you'd seen just Rocky and just Karate Kid, and then said that like that's pretty much it for this director, wouldn't that be kind of a shock?
Yeah, especially because we have so many underdog movies like Rudy, or I would say that probably the greatest sports
Mystery
underdog
Alaska.
movie is Air Bud. Because like those movies aren't great, and it's because they don't have his steady hand and patience.
It's steady-handed patience, but I also think there's something very specific about like Rocky and Karate Kid sports dramas versus other sports dramas are about team dynamics, and these two movies are about, even though they have people in their literal and metaphorical corners, it is one person fighting the world, and I think there's a different kind of story, and like this hits the discipline. I know there's discipline when people train for hockey and Greg's favorite movie, Mystery Alaska, or basketball.
It's the Rocky of hockey, Mike.
Football and like Varsity Blues or whatever. Like there's discipline there, but the movies don't focus on discipline and like self motivation, where Rocky and Karate Kid definitely show that self-sacrifice in a unique way.
Adam, were there times on this rewatch where the tropes got to you, or you rolled your eyes, or do you just like think of this movie as like a co-creator in most of them?
Yeah, I definitely never had. I didn't have that reaction. I didn't have the roll your eyes reaction at this. It felt very familiar, but in the right kind of way. In the way that a movie that knows what, more than anything, what emotional beats, and as we've said, the character beats that it needs to hit. If it was just about delivering those underdog moments, then I think this would be a much lesser film, and it's not. Like you get the sense that there's genuine care here that's going into this work.
When you guys were watching them at golf and stuff, which, by the way, is where my wife grew up. Not there at
Really?
the place.
She was
Wow.
raised at golf and stuff.
Yeah.
She lived in the slide.
It's such
She
a
has
paradise.
only eaten Bo Winkle's pizza by the time she was 15 years old.
When we're watching the fall in love quote unquote montage, or were you guys always rooting for Daniel and Miyagi to get back together, to like get to a scene where they're together when they weren't together?
Yeah.
Nope.
I think that the Allie and Daniel stuff is so much less interesting. The movie has less to say about childhood romance than it does mentor-mentee.
Oh man,
relationships.
I disagree. I think that we've spent so much time talking about the other aspect of the movie, but at the core of this, their love is like both romantic in the sense of like it is they have feelings for each other, but also like kind of romantic in that way that only teen love is, which is like, you know, knights and chivalry and everything. Like their like communication with each other is so sweet. You know, like the ways in which he wrongs her and then apologizes, or she says like, well, I shouldn't get on your case about this kind of stuff. They have legitimate, honest chemistry. I found myself as enthralled by their relationship as I was by his relationship with Miyagi.
Yeah, I think that adds a layer that, again, everything we're saying about the patience and how much care goes into the characters, it would still be an enjoyable film if it was just the Miyagi and Daniel relationship, I think. But the fact that we have that other in, and we get that other dimension with Daniel's character, I agree about their chemistry. I think that Ralph Macchio and Elizabeth Shue are great together on screen, and they have a real repartee. Like there's real wit to the writing between those two characters, and I enjoyed it every time. I actually did enjoy it every time they were back together on screen. I think there's some real important stuff going on with that relationship too, in terms of something that maybe we'll get into a little bit later, which is just about, this is a movie that is very much about, let's say it this way, how men treat women. And and to have Daniel as that character who's something or someone who's antithetical to Johnny and the way he treats women, I think, and even the way maybe her dad treats women, which is something we can kind of read into, maybe, I think is important. So I'm a big fan of that relationship.
I mean, like they're two very talented actors about to, blow up as stars, sort of. But
one maybe more than the other.
But there's something about the way that they talk to each other that almost feels improvised. And I know, like, that's both the greatest insult and the greatest compliment you can give a screenwriter, is that it feels improvised. But the way that they talk to each other, the overlapping, sort of kind of cringy, but in the perfect teenage way, it feels so natural. Like, it keeps reminding you that this is a karate kid.
Especially when they're in his the best costume I've ever seen, his shower costume.
Hell
And
yeah.
they're so suddenly they're having a private moment in a crowded dance floor, and they're dancing, and like they're both allowed to be cheesy in a way because nobody's looking. That is yes.
One
teenage
more,
love.
Delightful.
One more thing about them and kind of relating it to the director is we talked about a bunch of shots that we like, but also the sound direction in the tournament is I think perfect. And part of what's perfect about it is Elizabeth Shue's in the mix, and you can hear her like yelling encouragement to Daniel. And like first of all, it gives the tournament much more a sense of being there, both as a presence on the screen, but also like kind of as a presence within the movie itself. But also it's reminding of like the way in which their relationship, even though she's not in the ring with him, like she is, encouraging him and pushing him forward. And I just thought it was like a beautifully subtle way to express all that.
That makes me think, what if there was a scene where Daniel and Johnny invited Allie to their hotel room, and then all three of them started kissing, but she sort of leaned back and watched Daniel and Johnny
Are you
kiss?
challenging?
Somebody
Are
watch
you challenging
Challengers.
right now?
You
Well
don't think
played.
that scene would be amazing in this movie?
Well played, but you know what? On a serious note, if I can for a second, here's how good that relationship is. If I'm remembering correctly, I didn't rewatch The Karate Kid 2 for this taping, but if I'm remembering correctly, doesn't it open with
Yes.
him leaving a dance, showing up at Mr. Miyagi's place? Daniel's all fired up and mad, and he's mad about the fact that like Allie ran off with some other guy. And in the theater, I remember it. I haven't seen that movie since that film came out, and I remember the sense of betrayal I felt.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there going, talk about a bit of screenwriting, honestly. Like they needed, I don't know, she needed to come up with a terminal
Somehow
disease or something.
Allie escaped.
Like she something that let her off the hook rather than just like after this perfect relationship that comes together so well and you love to see them together, and then to find out that like she just went off with some other creep at a dance and
That's
it just
so
ended
cold.
unceremoniously.
It's very weird that fridging isn't just like in the world of the movie,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
killing women. Like you just want them out there so we can focus on the thing. Do you know where Allie went? It was to Back to the Future Part 2.
Oh,
Got
she
it.
was
She
the
had to take
new.
over,
Yeah,
She had
yeah.
to take over on that job. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we are finally, so we don't have to say that we're about to talk about it, going to talk about the entire franchise as a whole. Usually in this block, we like to stay talking about 1984 and do some dumb shit, but today we're going to pull back and look at what has happened with this film in the 40 years since it came out. The Karate Kid is one of 8 movies out of 16 we're covering this season that not only spawned sequels, but spawned content across media platforms. 2 more Daniel and Miyagi movies, The Next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank. Nice job, Mike, on that trivia. A 2010 reboot with Jackie Chan and a young actor whose name I will absolutely just keep out of my mouth. And in 2025, a new movie that stars Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. In 2018, the short-lived YouTube Red brought us Cobra Kai, a show that attempted to turn Johnny into the good guy and Daniel into the dick, but nobody watched it. That is, of course, until YouTube Red shut down. The show flipped over to Netflix. It became a giant sensation. What is your guys' history with the rest of the franchise? And rewatching the original this week, did you see something that these projects are trying to chase, or is this just nostalgia here?
The only one I have history with at this point is Cobra Kai. I don't think I watched it on YouTube Red because I'm a normal person and did not own YouTube Red. But it is one of the best nostalgia plays, reboots, requels that's ever been created because the people behind the camera had an angle. It wasn't just shut up and play the hits. Here's the beats again. There's very few of the same beats because they're telling a Johnny redemption story. And isn't it interesting to watch somebody who so often doesn't deserve to be redeemed and often doesn't think he should be redeemed? That's fucking fascinating.
Except for that 1 second at the end where I thought he was going to steal the trophy and run out of the building.
Daniel, it's mine.
But instead he says, I want to hand it to him.
That I love that moment in this Karate Kid because it's been so long I couldn't remember. So, that was where you can see adult Johnny from Cobra Kai. There is a kernel of good in him. And him being like, maybe I shouldn't listen to my clearly war criminal sensei who's telling me to murder this kid for a trophy.
Is this where we can talk about Johnny Lawrence? Are we saving it for
Yeah.
anything? because
Feel free.
I mean,
Johnny Law.
Let it all hang out.
I mean, I guess I'll still answer your question, Ryan, and say that you heard me mention I was going to say the glory of love, because I remember Peter Cetera and how big of a hit that song was, the song from The Karate Kid 2, that summer that movie came out as well. But I was still obsessed with this series when the second film came out. And then by the time we get, to 89 and we get to The Karate Kid 3, I remember it being on HBO a lot, and I would maybe out of nostalgia watch a few scenes from it. And it did feel like so many bad sequels, right? Where it's taking the essence of the thing that was so pure and good and bastardizing it. It's like, we got to have the bad guy sensei, and Martin Kove is a bad guy sensei. Don't get me wrong, but he's also he's almost unintentionally comical, whereas like Terry Silver and some of these guys that we get, and you get like Mike Barnes. I had to look this up, but I remember him. Like Mike Barnes is like, he's the Johnny Lawrence on steroids. He's the bad guy on steroids. And they're just like, it's not fun. And yet they're hoping that Pat Morita is still, our affection for him is going to carry the day. And so I never watched that movie. I never watched the Hilary Swank one in its entirety. Always just saw scenes. And so for me, I didn't re-engage with this franchise at all until Cobra Kai. So I'll table any more Johnny Lawrence stuff for now, but I'll say that it was Cobra Kai that brought me back. And what I was hearing about this redemption story with Johnny Lawrence, and I had to know how they were going to do that, because there seemed to me some things that are just immutable laws of the universe. And the fact that Johnny Lawrence is one of the biggest dicks of all time, I didn't see how there could be a challenge to that. And then not only did I see Cobra Kai and saw the fun they had and the twists they turned with that, but then I went back and watched this movie, and there's some truth to it. There really is.
Yeah.
Yes, he's an absolute jerk, but he is also, just like Ralph Macchio, like Daniel, he's a wounded boy. He's a wounded boy who has a lot of pressure on him coming from that sensei. Think about the way we get introduced to him. I said I wasn't going to talk about him. Now I'm talking about him. The way we get introduced to him is like, he shows up on his bike, and one of his buddies is like, he asks him some question. He's like, he basically says, it's going to be a great year. I'm going to win it all. It's like, talk about protesting too much. Like, he's someone who doesn't maybe have it all. And the way all those boys in Cobra Kai are always looking to Kreese, and they're looking to him to tell them what to do. They're afraid of how they're going to misstep and how they might be punished by him. And when he tells them to do things that go against their character, that you can see that they don't agree. They feel like they have to do it anyway, that they're obligated to, but they don't want to do it. I was shocked by how much I watched it this time and saw what I actually understood what Cobra Kai was playing with in a way I didn't before ever.
I watched, as I said, I watched Karate Kid 2 a lot when I was a kid. But watching, and I never watched the show Cobra Kai. This movie, as this movie ends, there is a very strong feeling like it would be so perfect if this were the only movie, this were the only thing that existed in this universe, because it does do so much hinting at deep complexities that it's nice not to have those resolved, and then to, like, as the viewer, try to construct what you think is around that corner, rather than have any part of it actually spelled out for you, but to leave it like an open possibility. And I will say, again, like, you watch this movie as a kid and you think it's a movie about the kids. It's not. It's a movie about the adults, and it's a movie about the effect that adults have on kids. And I think it's totally true, the idea that, like, Johnny seems like such a little piece of shit, but it's because his sensei is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And if Ralph...
And I'm going to assume his father.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. Definitely. I mean, he's got a motorcycle, but, like, why is he out riding around at night?
It's basically if
motorcycle?
Nelson Muntz grew up in...
the hills,
yeah,
right?
got a karate class.
Yeah. And so it's we get the types of students that we have as
right.
teachers,
I mean, you watch Daniel in twice and Miyagi once, back out of there like, hell no, we want to be a part of whatever.
This is an unhealthy environment. You can smell the testosterone in the air, and somebody might get murdered.
What does Mr. Miyagi do at the building? He maintenance. What does he do to teach Danielson karate? He has him do maintenance. He's maintaining. He's establishing and helping to further the balance in the world. And that creator impulse is what's making Daniel successful, and it's what is going to build him into the kind of citizen that we need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ryan, I was going to say too that it's interesting. In a little bit, you would never, at the time, we would have never used a phrase like fan service, right?
Yeah.
But in The Karate Kid 2, that might have been the first moment. If someone asked me the first time I was ever aware of a movie playing with its own mythology and actually having some fun with it and subverting our expectations as an audience member, in The Karate Kid 2, there's a big moment where, here it's going to come. The crane kick. Daniel's going to pull it out. And he's gonna beat the bad guy. He's gonna defeat him just like he did Johnny. And that's not what happens. The guy anticipates it, right? And he has to win another way. And I just remember that and thinking that was actually, maybe a fairly bold, a bolder choice by them in the sense that they could have delivered the exact same goods there. They could have had him do it again, and they played with it and had some fun with it.
And I'm glad they played with it because it's the biggest advertised move ever. In the end, he leads up. So Johnny could have taken him out 8 different ways. The way he's like, I'm going to kick you with this foot. I hope you're watching.
Could have tickled his armpits. There were so many moves at that point.
The actor that plays Johnny moves so fast that he actually takes a step forward and then stops so that he doesn't get too close. That guy's really fast and really good at karate. I know he's bad, but...
Going back to something that Greg said about how they know that this is not right. The kid, I can't remember which punchable face it was.
Bobby.
Is it Bobby? I love Bobby. Bobby is clearly based on Luke Skywalker. I love him.
And
Bobby,
on steroids?
Who tries to, when they're all skeletons, he tries to stop it. He's like, wait, you can hit a kid once, but this is insane.
Yeah.
And then Bobby he's the one who hurts Daniel's knee in the tournament.
And doesn't want to. Yeah.
And then he's like, he does it, and he's like, I'm so sorry.
And he says, I'm sorry.
He
apologizes.
He falls to the ground and says, Daniel, I'm so sorry.
It must be said. That's such a cool kick. He jumps up in the air, but then kicks down at Daniel's knee. Man, that would get me. You never think that a kick to the knee is going to come from the air like that. It just collapses him.
Greg, I've reached for salt and pepper, and it's gotten you.
Well, I have very bad reflexes. It's actually pretty scary.
I think that ultimately, too, with the multimedia spawning franchises that Avildsen's movies have created, I think also speaks to how great he is. Because, not to betray my generation, but... I don't like Rocky. Nobody likes Rocky 5, but Rocky 2 through 4, I don't. I think that they're dumb. I think that they're big and dumb, and I think that it's people just chasing this thing that he has in the first Rocky and Karate Kid.
Dude, at the end of Rocky 1, where the guys clinch and Apollo Creed says, there's not going to be a rematch, and Rocky says, I don't want a rematch. That's the coolest ending to any movie of all time. How do you then have there be another movie where there's a fucking rematch? No, don't do that. You have the best ending possible.
I think there's a reason it took decades, right? And it's Cobra Kai and Creed, and it's like passing of torches that made those much later sequels matter again and be good. It's because it wasn't somebody chasing the money, because that's all the other sequels are doing, right? They're not trying to tell compelling stories until a new generation came up behind the camera and it was like, no, we remember what the first one for these franchises were doing, and we're going to get back to that.
Would you guys have preferred it if there was a scene where John G. Avildsen invites Rocky and the Karate Kid to a hotel room, and then they're all making out, and then he leans back, and then Rocky and Karate Kid just start kissing?
Okay, I do wish Stallone and Macchio got to fight in one of the sequels, like a shared sequel verse.
Is that from Challengers, or is that from Y Tu Mama Tambien, or just both?
They're the same movie, dude.
Right? Because that's the same exact thing that happened to me.
Ryan, I'm on screen right now looking in between the two of you. You have a chance to recreate it right now.
Adam, why are you leaning back while me and Greg get closer together? All right, that is the Karate Kid franchise. We're going to take a break and finish up our Karate Kid conversation. The original title of this movie was, I shit you not, East meets West in West. Its title in countries where karate is frowned upon is The Moment of Truth, which I think should be the name of every single movie. What does this movie have to say about the collision between the East and West Coast of America? And is it more than it has to say about the collision of Eastern and Western values?
I do think it's so
This
interesting.
is a hard one, Mike. I'm glad you stepped up.
Somebody has to. I mean, this is one of the things where I'm just talking, and my brain will figure it out eventually.
You'll get there, buddy.
But that the East Coasters moved to California, and who do they connect to immediately I think the movie is arguing that the East Coast and what we used to call the Far East are more similar to each other than the East Coast of America and the West Coast of America. It really feels like both the West in general and specifically California are like without honor. They care about money and that's it. And they're all dog shit people who like dog shit activities. But if you're from Jersey or Okinawa, you have honor and morals.
Going back to the opening again, like, not only is he in a different world, he's like 3 worlds adjacent.
Yeah.
I like when first he drives through you see them drive through the Midwest. Then they drive through like the high desert, and I like how the music changes.
Yeah.
It gets a little western. It's like when you're on the train at Disneyland.
And then in like Arizona, they're like, guitar player, get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of the backseat.
But so he is very much like to be transplanted from the East Coast is a dramatically different experience, and then also to be like on the lower socioeconomic standard, to have to be like, no, I'm not from Encino, I'm from Reseda, and he like hangs his head.
Greg, that pool didn't have water.
No, man, that's another really cute moment where he walks into the apartment and his mom's like, I know about the pool, I'm gonna call, I promise.
I'm gonna call.
He's like, he doesn't give her a hard time. That's why he's such a sweet boy with Elizabeth Shue, because he and his mom have such a great relationship.
I should maybe not touch this one, Ryan, because when you talk about West versus East, I thought you meant like East Asian.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to really start. We were really going to get into the whole Orientalism aspect of this film, which is there. It's undeniably,
right, yeah.
It is something you watch with a different set of eyes now, and you recognize this kind of over romanticizing of the Miyagi character and some of his abilities and the wisdom he passes on. I joked about it earlier, but that we see him twice like heal Daniel, as if he's drawing on ancient mystical powers because he's from Japan, that he can do that, and the movie even gives him. There are a couple moments where we get a leitmotif that's like the music changes to this weird Asian sounding music, right? When he's on screen.
Not Gremlins offensive, but it's there.
And I was looking up something today, and I saw that, Pat Morita was born in California.
Right.
Right. And he apparently had to audition multiple times. And when he went in originally, he talked like he actually speaks, and they're like, no, that's not what we're looking for.
Hi, I'm Pat Morita, and I would like to be Mr. Miyagi.
Right, and they said, as soon as he started talking in that clipped, prophetic, stereotypical way, they said, oh yeah, that's the stuff. That's what we need here. That's what audiences need to feel comfortable.
And he said he was mimicking his uncle, and I wonder if that's the kind of thing you tell yourself as an actor to not be like, and I'm betraying my people. No, it's my uncle. Like,
was it his uncle, or was it like comedians on TV making Japanese jokes?
It's
Andy Rooney.
It's particularly Mickey Rooney.
No, I'm Andy Rooney, and this is
what's the deal with portrayals of Japanese characters in the movies?
It's a common mistake.
I have to say, I usually have a lot of complaints with this sort of thing. I do think the movie dips into this Eastern mysticism several times, but I feel like the movie tries, in spite of its weaknesses, to show Mr. Miyagi in such depth that I find myself more inclined to sort of turn away from those moments. But they're undeniable. The other one is when he chops off all the bottles. He chops
bottles.
I think that's Larry Drake in the MAGA hat.
It is.
The bad guy from Darkman. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I like is him, and it's a very human Miyagi moment, is he's like, how'd you do it? He's like, I've never done that before. Like,
exactly, yeah.
I think how they backtrack from going full, like, magical Asian character is him not being able to catch the fly, him not knowing he could do that, and he's just like, I'm a dude. Like, and it's almost like if you squint and want to run away from it, be like, this is Daniel's view of him.
Yeah.
He has a lot of talent and wisdom for Daniel.
Mike, he doesn't catch the fly, but the white
Daniel.
character he's training does right away.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a thing for him. It's something that Mr. Miyagi's tried his whole life to do. And Daniel's just like, what do? You just clap together and oops, I got it.
Miyagi's pissed and leaves.
Well,
Mr. Miyagi, it's been a real privilege.
Yeah. I mean, well, the whole thing, I mean, Daniel is, granted, almost everybody we see in the tournament, it's the All Valley tournament, is white. But the whole thing is appropriating this form of combat, right, that does not come from Reseda or from the Valley or anywhere nearby, right? But that's what we get here. There's a little bit of that, even another tie back to Avildson and Rocky, right, where Rocky, the whole thing about him being like the great white hope, and the fact that like boxing at that point had become primarily an African-American sport. Muhammad Ali, the model for Apollo Creed, was what a heavyweight champion looked like, right? And I do think that movie is actually a little smarter about race than maybe it gets credit for, a little more sensitive than it gets credit for. Like when I think about Eddie Murphy making jokes, and I think it's Raw about when Italians go see that film and how they react to it, and there's a moment here, that. I think it got referenced earlier, right? The scene, the anniversary scene, where he gets drunk, and we see all that grief come out. The fact that they add in that element of his wife and child dying in an internment camp, is something they didn't have to do, right? Like that wouldn't have changed fundamentally anything about the film, but I think it does add a sense of it's another character who is devalued, who's treated as the other and suffers for it, and his family suffers for it, even as you said, even though he fought for the country. And just the fact that they include that suggests to me that there's a little bit of a questioning of that dominant culture that I didn't expect.
And that he's not actually he doesn't think of himself in any way as
Right.
Japanese.
Right.
Yeah, he corrects people as if they said
and
Miyagi.
it's so hard to remember that. Like, if you read reviews of this movie, they're all just like, and his Japanese teacher this, and his Japanese teacher that. But he doesn't see himself that way. And Okinawa was a huge, like, American base during World War II. And the character, is off fighting Germans during World War II. And so it's like his identity is, like, multi-layered and extremely complex. But it's hard to even talk about the movie in those complex terms. And so we often just flatten it and just say, yeah, he's his Japanese teacher.
Would it have been better if instead of complications in childbirth, it was Christmas and his wife and his newborn were trying to slide down the chimney to bring them presents, and that is how they died?
Just thought
that would have been better, Ryan.
That would have been better, right?
That would have been such a nice surprise.
It's not our job to change the movie, but I wonder if, like, I think the main sticking point here in this movie with me is if we just had a little cutaway where Elizabeth Shue was like, "What? You rubbed your hands together and touched him. What did you do?" And Miyagi was like,
Yes.
"Oh, I don't know. They just believe that."
I totally agree with that.
Placebo effect.
And I have to say, even with, again, this movie, like, allows, I think, for a lot of your extrapolating from things. I think even without that scene, there is a case for the fact that that is what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
That, like, he just is, like, because there's nothing like that, right? We can all agree that there's no power like that. Yet at the time, I think
there's
you could
Reiki, Greg.
convince.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's nothing where you rub your hands together like 20 times and then touch something. But I think you could convince a kid that
For
an
sure.
old Japanese man could do that in 1984. And so it's probably headcanon, but
Although-
I do think the movie allows for that.
There's other complications there too, though. That kid's leg is broken. I convinced him to go back out there.
Yeah.
Because I rubbed my hands together. Like that's my stuff.
Adrenaline does a lot, baby.
That's abuse, brother.
Going back to, like, Eastern and Western, I think there's a huge, and I think the franchise throughout down the line deals with it more than this one, but this at least hints at it, that Kreese's dojo, Cobra Kai, guts all of the thoughtfulness and philosophy out of karate, and he's like, no, they learned
The
that
American
kick,
way.
but then they told me to think, no, so we're gonna hurt first. I want my kids to damage forever other kids just so they could say they won because I was a POW in Vietnam, so now I'm going to take it out against the world via children.
Oh, that pan over to I wonder what kind of teacher Kreese is, and then it shows him in his Vietnam picture, like his Vietnam
He's a Green Beret.
high school picture.
Yeah.
Green Beret. It's like,
Aren't you guys glad that, like, a whole generation of hyper-violent adults aren't twisting kids in any way
that'd be
outside of this
awful.
movie?
Uh-oh. You know what that sound means. It's speed round time. You don't have to say your name to weigh in, but we're going to go fast. Here we go. Number 1. Is this the best depiction of the differences between Reseda and Encino? Californians, shout out here.
Mike, shit, yes.
I've noticed personally, people from Reseda are usually walking down the boulevard, but people from Encino tend to fall into like big pits of ice and get frozen, and then later unfrozen, and then go to high school. So
why travel to Encino when you can rent Encino Man? Mike, isn't Reseda part of your style?
My Reseda style?
Is it, like Greg always says, you have a Reseda hairline.
No,
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
ow.
That's so mean.
That hurts. Ryan, you're putting your words in Greg's mouth. You're the one who always points it out.
Anyway, moving on. How does this movie rate as a young teen romance? How much chemistry is there between our stars? We did talk about that one, but I do want to talk about just like, can you guys see this movie turning off people because of the sort of 90210 CW acting style of it all?
No, I think these kids can act.
Yeah,
for sure.
I thought it was sweet and lovely. I feel like we so rarely get romances where you see the two characters really working hard to communicate and make amends to one another. I just thought it was really beautiful.
Like, they both make mistakes.
Yeah.
They both allow for that. They're actually working. You get why they like each other, not like so many like modern love triangles or whatever. But I realized what I was trying to articulate before. It's not that I am bored when it's Daniel and Allie. I think they're great together. But there's hints at deeper stuff that the movie, if it just added like a little more time, I guess it could talk. Like, class is not dealt with that much, but is bubbling underneath all of their interactions. And so I'm like, I don't know, movie. I think you got it in you. Let's tackle this a little harder.
The kids are great, and it's the adults that are terrible because when Daniel accidentally trips in the kitchen, all of the adults stand up and laugh and point as hard as they can. Who are the absolute maniacs? Moving on. Is Mr. Miyagi super rich? He has a great house and like 4 cars, but he works as a super in a shitty Reseda apartment complex.
Yeah, what is the deal with that? He's got like, at first they're like, this is the maintenance guy for the building. And then the movie seems to like move off that premise. No, he's not. He's this guy that lives in this oil field and has like 8 classic cars. What's going on with that? A great deck?
Oh, you're becoming Mickey Rooney right now.
What's balance? His life is all about balance, right?
True.
So he can be independent, and he's so wise that he has apparently saved money, and he's been cautious. But then he likes to serve people. I think that's how we're supposed to to see it.
He's floating on that WW2 pension, but he also wants to spend his days doing something worthwhile, like sort of fixing a crappy apartment in Reseda.
This makes me want to have a scene in Kreese's house, which is just a rundown piece of shit because he doesn't know philosophy.
Oh, Kreese sleeps like an assassin. He is a mattress on the floor.
Kreese got his name because of his unironed pants. How many of us claim to know karate as a kid strictly because they had seen this movie?
No, I learned my lesson not to mimic movies because I saw Superman too young, and then I held up another kid against the wall like Superman does, and they got in a lot of trouble, so I stopped mimicking movies at that point.
That's a good call. So Johnny's like a million times better at karate, right?
Dude,
Yes.
Johnny's so good at karate.
Yeah.
He's won twice before.
And just like to watch him move, even when he gets down, just watching him get down in his stance, you're like, damn, this guy knows what's up. And then those kicks, it's not that they're powerful, which they are. It's that they're very fast. The problem with kicking is that by the time you get your foot all the way around, someone could punch you like 100 times. Not Johnny, though.
And finally, wait, why is there no defense for the crane style? And Adam, you talked about this with Karate Kid Part 2, but like, I feel like we should just knock this out, right?
You just like smack or like when he goes up like that, you just back away from him and he's like, okay, wait, hang on, I gotta put this other foot down.
But yes, watching it now, you feel even the same way you did back then as a kid, where you're like, that seems a little nuts. Like, Johnny's better than him, and he didn't see that coming somehow. There's no doubt about it, but again, it's all about balance, right? Johnny can't fathom what Daniel might be doing in that moment. His little brain can't handle the oddness of that, right? And everything that Daniel is bringing to the tournament there. So I don't know. It still kind of works. It absolutely delivers as a great sports movie moment. There's
Chills.
just no doubt that it works, even if it's a little silly.
Now knowing that it's this, because I did not throughout my life that it's the same guy who did Rocky did this, I'm like, oh, Daniel should have lost. They should have ripped off Rocky more. But Johnny's like, oh shit, dude, you were great. I can't believe you had that much heart.
Yeah.
So sorry, I've been a rich prick about everything. I'm dealing with my own issues.
But
It is interesting.
What's so smart, though, is that Mr. Miyagi steers it so that the fight will take place at this karate tournament.
Yeah.
Because that's the only arena in which Daniel could beat up any of
Yes.
those boys. Because
Right.
he's getting points for shots that do zero damage to
Right.
anybody. At one point, he gets a point for punching a guy lightly in the chest.
Yeah.
And the guy didn't even notice. Like, this is the only dojo in which he could possibly win.
It's just interesting that the fact that he does win, even though it seems like the obvious conventional choice, you wonder if they only did that so it wouldn't look even more like they were ripping Rocky off. Because
For
he
sure.
has he has no business winning the fight. Everyone would agree to that. Daniel would agree. Mr. Miyagi would agree, right? And we as viewers are on this journey with them. It's just great that he's in the tournament at all. That he beat one fighter? Great. Daniel, good job. Mission accomplished. The fact that you beat multiple fighters and then get to the end, they could have done something very similar where he loses to Johnny and we would have all walked out of the theater still feeling really great. But they give us the win, I think, just because it couldn't repeat the Rocky formula.
Yeah.
Here's the ending. Here's the ending for you. They say there's a new rule in the karate tournament. Now whoever's the best at sanding, finishing, and painting a deck is the winner. And Daniel's like, oh my gosh, I've been training for this for weeks.
I will say I do like the muscle memory thing. That's cute. And Daniel being like, my shoulders are sort of show he's working out. He does a lot of moves at the All Valley that Miyagi never taught him via labor. Like he's doing some scissor kicks and shit. I'm like, what chore did you do to teach him that, huh?
Well, before we get to cinema sins here, I do want to point out that
Ouch, that hurt.
Yeah.
look how perfectly the movie is bookended, because how does it end? Crane style. How does it start? With the camera going up
Crane
above that
shot.
car?
I was going
Crane
to say,
style.
it's a movie
Give
of
yourself-
crane shots and crane kicks.
Give yourself a point there, Ryan.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, let's give this movie all of the awards it deserves. All right, guys, it's time for the awards. I will say this. It is a very close race right now. You guys are neck and neck and neck. So these awards are going to bring it all home. Each of you are going to nominate these categories for one award. I'm going to pick the winner. The winner gets points. We're going to start off, so we don't forget, with recommendations. Greg, what do you recommend for The Karate Kid?
In 1984, a game came out for the Apple II computer called Karateka. And it was most of the games that came out for the Apple II were they were very rudimentary because the Apple II had it had less memory than like your AirPods have. But everybody really liked Karateka because part of how it was made was with like the video game equivalent of rotoscoping, so like tracing actual like film of people moving around. It was one of the first games to incorporate music, and in fact, it was so hard on the computer to create music that there couldn't be music and movement on the screen at the same time. It's a game that worked within its limitations very effectively. That's not my recommendation. My recommendation is recently a game came out called The Making of Karateka, and it is something between...
Wait, a game called The Making of?
Yeah, The Making of Karateka. And what it is it's like it's something between a game and like a museum exhibit. And like an interactive like documentary experience. So there's video clips. You get to play earlier versions of the game.
What?
And this is the first game that really looked to cinema for its sensibilities. Games like Pac-Man or Frogger just sort of like there's no story. You're just doing something. Karateka was the first game to be like, no, there's a narrative here. You have to save the princess. Originally, the Karateka was going to be about a guy fighting through a karate tournament, but eventually it became like a sort of Enter the Dragon style fighting through levels. But without Karateka, there perhaps would not be this turn in video games towards the more cinematic. And The Making of Karateka, which came out just this year to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Karateka, is a great experience, multimodal experience, including looking at the music, which incorporates elements of leitmotif, which by listening to this, I realized I had been calling Liet motif, but
Liet.
it's actually leitmotif. So now I learned
I say
something as
lay.
well.
It's not lay.
I think it's leitmotif based on how much
I say
this
light.
person. Yeah, and Adam said it earlier. I heard.
So, yeah.
I noticed. Yeah. But the
I could be wrong.
If you're interested in video game history, if you're interested in how different video games can be nowadays, they can be more than just like one experience. It could be like this whole documentary experience or walking through a making of. Think about checking out for the PC the making of Karateka.
That is nuts. I had to leave the Buckaroo Banzai show early. So I wanted to ask you guys, when it came to recommendations, did Matt Singer recommend Jim Cotta?
He recommended his own book, Opposable Thumbs, and it was
That's a galaxy brain move there by Matt.
It was. Mike and I were just kind of stunned, but he went on at some length about his book.
Okay, but that guy has a serious problem with the movie Jim Cotta, and he needs to seek help. Mike, what is your recommendation?
I found it hard. Like instinct, I still think not enough people watch Cobra Kai, and I was like, "Come on, Mike, do better." And then I started thinking about Cobra Kai, and then I was like, do you know what movie is similar? Like, what if it was about Johnny Lawrence, and it follows the asshole mentor and a kid who's kind of a prick but trying to make his way? Is Whiplash.
Whiplash, yeah.
Yeah, you knew exactly where I was going. It really is like, no, what if we like really sit and crease his mind a little more? And it's terrifying. And we get the how it's breaking Johnny down. I think there's a lot of similar DNA there. And also more people need to watch Whiplash and remember that Damien Chazelle can make good movies because even he's forgotten. Burn.
Another strong ending in Whiplash, because Whiplash kind of like the ending of it throws everything into a little bit of a cocked hat. Like,
yeah.
What if Johnny won in this tournament, and he won because he was as heartless as his sensei told him
exactly
to be? Adam, how about you? Do you have a recommendation?
Well, my recommendation was going to be Cobra Kai, but I was just told that was a boring choice, and I can't go. No, actually, I did have another one in mind because it is a boring choice, and I was also pretty sure someone would mention it if I didn't. How about, so I'll say this briefly. When Ryan first told me about this category, I misread it, and I thought he meant more like the biggest pop culture influence the movie had, like something that came about because of the movie. So I started thinking about like, what's the thing? What was the thing that everyone took from this film that everyone remembers? And of course you start thinking about some of the phrases. I mean, you think about the crane kick, because everybody still to this day, if they want to act like they know karate, they look like an idiot and do the crane kick, right? There's also, of course, wax on, wax off. And that's probably the real answer. But here's where I'm going to tie it back to my recommendation. The other one I wrote down, its lasting legacy, is it gave us the immortal phrase, sweep the leg.
Yeah.
Or the way it sounds when Martin Kove says it, sweep the lick, which we really thought he was saying when we were kids. Go back and watch it. It really sounds like he says sweep the lick. Does he mean the leg? Looks like he meant the leg, but why does he say sweep the lick? Okay, so my recommendation, Chicago's own experimental rock band, Sweep the Leg Johnny. I'm sure they're on Spotify. 5 albums that came out between, I think, 96 and the 5 albums between 96 and the early 2000s obviously took their name directly from that phrase.
What if they didn't? What if they had never seen the movie before?
We're not familiar with it.
All right, my recommendation, this is the only one I'm going to weigh in on, is, and it's behind a paywall, so I apologize for that, but there's an episode of the podcast Scott hasn't seen where Connor Ratliff is the guest, and they review or discuss the movie The Next Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And it is one of the best podcasts I've ever heard. I have never seen this movie. According to them, it is fucking wild. It's nonstop craziness, and it really speaks to this guy who I didn't know that much about before that. I know he has this his podcast Dead Eyes, where he was fired from the movie Saving Private Ryan because Tom Hanks thought that he had dead eyes, and that was the only note. And then he comes on here, and I just like it's not like set up punchline. This is how I'm funny. Everything he says is so naturally comedic. And going over this movie, he is in his wheelhouse. Please find this episode if you can. Mike, have you
phenomenal.
Seen the movie?
No, but I can picture the version
to?
in my head can't match up. But the way they talk about it, it's Hilary Swank learning karate because she's like from the wrong side of the tracks, and that's how she learns. And it's her against mercenaries. Fuck yeah! But there's no way it's as golden as it is in my brain, so I'm just gonna close my eyes and think about it instead of going watching it.
Greg gets that point for his passionate lecture about karateka.
The making of karateka.
Karateka, which is karate and erotica.
That's what it sounds like. The word, if in Japanese, should be pronounced more like karataka, but nobody in America knew how to say it. Again, because America was fascinated with Japan in the 80s, but not really like the real Japan, just like ninjas and ninja stars and stuff. And we tried to pass it off as like we were like engaging culturally with them. But so like we didn't know how to like say their words or anything. So karataka or karateka.
And I think going back to like what do we have because of the Karate Kid, I think the biggest thing is the Ninja Turtles. Like that was a huge phenomenon that I don't think would exist without
Master
Karate
Splinter.
Kid. All right, let's get into specific Karate Kid awards. Adam, I'm going to start with you with the 84 fit or style.
Oh man, I was hoping I would go last here because I've got two. I've got two that I can't decide between. So I'll
skip you.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. You know what? I'll take it. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to back down from a fight. I'm going with this. Okay. As I was watching the movie, knowing this category was on the docket, I thought, I think I just watched the scene where I understand why this category is being posed to us. And it is the moment when Daniel LaRusso comes to school and approaches Allie in the hallway, that outside hallway, because they're in California, and he's wearing a plaid shirt and camouflage pants.
Tucked into the camouflage.
Tucked into his camouflage pants. And I don't know if you guys know this. It's not just, that it's bad fashion, which it seems to me bad fashion. What do I know? But that was a thing in the 80s. And I had to look this up just to confirm that I wasn't crazy. And there was a bunch of stuff on the Google that told me that, apparently, it was like, we're in these military campaigns in like Grenada and Lebanon. All of a sudden, war is a thing in the 80s. And everyone's seeing our soldiers on the news at night or whatever. And they're like, camouflage.
Camo.
It's a thing. Camo was a thing.
It's the time of the Soldier of Fortune and the Mercenary, and like these like extrajudicial, like sort of like international espionage acts. And so then the way the culture reacts is people just start wearing camouflage.
There's a version of Allie that looks at him in that outfit and says like, "I know why they're beating you up. Get away from me."
Yeah.
Mike, what do we got?
Speaking of Allie, her hair is so goddamn 80s. She looks like a teenager. She acts like a teenager, but that hair is 40 years old selling real estate.
Yeah.
It is fucking crazy. She's not doing herself any favors, but it's just because that's how you had to do your hair at the time. It is wildly 80s.
In a movie all about bullying, it's some of the biggest teasing you see.
Wow.
Oh, Greg, I like your brain.
Greg, what do we got?
One thing I really appreciate about the 80s is that boys could dress really slutty. And we've kind of like just moved away from that, but like 80s, like the belly shirt was really big for boys. And I think that this is something that's coming back and I really welcome it. And I've wanted to get in on what was the 80s foremost trend, which is boys wearing short shorts. And so I'm going to go with the PE outfits that the boys wear like at soccer practice and stuff because I really believe guys should start dressing slutty as hell again. And I hope I want to have the courage to do it myself. And I just think fellas with really, really short shorts, it's kind of funny, but also the ladies like to see a little leg.
It's the only attractive part of the body that we have. Like our
that's
faces
very
are gross,
true.
our tummies are disgusting.
That's very true. Yeah, so I'm going with the PE outfits.
And none of us said, is that right? None of us said the Michael Jackson Beat It leather jacket.
Nope.
That Johnny wears, the Cobra Kai red jacket. And first of all, like, don't be that guy. You can't be the guy that wears your own dojo's insignia on your leather jacket.
Yeah, what a dork.
It's like the guy who wore his own band shirt on stage.
That's it.
The correct answer is, of course, a shower. Everybody was dressing like a shower back then. But
when he comes and talks to Mr. Miyagi about like that there's going to be a dance tonight, you can see behind him the elements of the shower, and I got like all like excited and I knew I was going to see the shower costume in a second.
That's some single parent shit right there too. Like, I have a Halloween costume, and single parent like, this?
You're a hobo.
That's true, Mom. Please find a new spouse. all great, but I have to give that to Adam because I have more notes about this tucked-in shirt camo pants thing than I do about the movie in general. All right, music moment, Greg. There's some bangers. This is the debut of Cruel Summer.
Yes.
Yep.
Funny. Thank you, Ryan, for mentioning that particular song. There's like 8 songs. Remember we talked about the Mean Streets episode that Martin Scorsese was the first person to be like, you know what? I should just take music that's already good and put it in the movie. Well, not
Why
every,
do I need to call John Williams?
Not every movie picked up on that, and so a lot of the movies in the 80s, it's like they would hire somebody to write like 8 songs for the movie, and so most of this is just Bill Conti songs, right? But Bananarama, Ryan, did you know?
Sorry.
This is the premiere of Cruel Summer. That's a dope track. And the kind of like laid back vibe and the way this movie is about summer ending and high school, like, you know, the high school year just starting, and the way it kind of like plays us into that mindset, I thought it was really cool.
Did you also notice that the camera lands on that plaque at the school that talks about the philosophy of Miyagi and not crease?
Toleration,
yeah. Let's tolerate. Mike, what do we got?
It is Feel the Night by, I think, one Baxter Robertson. It's what plays over golf and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as good of a standalone song as Cruel Summer is, but it's so much. This movie does montages very well, and so much of like you believe they're falling for each other, not just because they're witty tete-a-tete, but they're them dancing through golf and stuff while Feel the Night, and they are feeling the night, plays over it.
I do want to thank everyone on this episode tonight for at no point saying it's where I get all of my golf and most of my stuff. Congratulations, everybody. Adam, music moment.
Well, speaking of golf, they put this on a tee for me, but I'm going to give you a runner-up or two. I mean, I get to drop the word leitmotif in here again. Not only do we get hilarious and offensive, use of a certain track whenever Mr. Miyagi is being pensive or thoughtful. How about every time Johnny and his motorcycle gang shows up? There is that recurring keyboard theme that is just hilarious.
Watch out.
And speaking of the crane kick and that moment delivering at the end, Bill Conti, that score, the trumpet blast, the way the trumpets come in and just cue you that something cool is about to happen, and then the cymbal crash happens right on the crane kick moment. Yeah, it gives you chills. But there is a clear, correct answer here, and I've got 2 words for you, Joe Esposito. You're the best around?
You're the best around.
The All Valley Karate Tournament montage song, it is incredible, and it includes also maybe the single greatest acting moment in the movie, which is when Daniel beats Tommy, Rob Garrison, and the camera goes to Martin Kove. He's taken out a couple Cobra Kai guys, and Johnny looks at him like, "What the hell, Sensei? What's going on?" And Kove does that thing where he brushes his fingers through his hair. It's in the most unnatural way possible. It's maybe my favorite moment in the movie, and it happens during the "You're the Best Around" montage.
I mean, this has to go to Adam. Like, it is the most 80s-rific song in this movie. Adam takes that point. Let's go to Adam for cringiest moment. Is it the same thing of Kove brushing his hair?
Okay. I'm really ready for this one because it takes us back. It takes us back to the recurring theme of toxic masculinity in this movie, or as we called it in the 80s, masculinity.
Right.
And it's the moment when Daniel meets Allie's mom and dad, and he has to pick her up for a date. Now, here's a moment where I'm cringing just on behalf of the character, Daniel. Mm-hmm. Not only does, he has to pick her up on the other side of town at that rich house with his beat up car, but his mom has to drive. His mom has to drive. And then she doesn't just sit there silently and try to be invisible. Oh no. Mrs. LaRusso wants to make sure that, that her presence is known. But how about that moment? So Daniel is acting all awkward and weird in front of the parents, and he knocks over a rock or something of their landscaping.
He kicks a little bit of their brick off.
He kicks a little bit of the brick, and
he's the Karate Kid,
and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And Allie's dad says sternly to his wife,
"Yes,
I thought you were going to have that fixed." And the mom's response, do you guys remember this? The mom's response is so good. She goes, I will.
I will. Yeah.
Oh, no.
She seems genuinely terrified of
Yes.
her husband. And it's not really a case where I think, I'm not cringing because it's a bad 80s
She
moment. so much.
is.
I don't think
She's cringing.
She is, right. I
Yeah.
don't think the movie is holding this up as like proper male behavior or the right dynamic between a husband and wife. But again, I think it is reflecting something the movie is reflecting back in the culture. And every man in this movie, except Miyagi and Daniel, is basically a bully. And we see it there with the dad. And when she says that, I remember cringing, just being like, oh my God, I'm worried about her. I'm worried about what's
Yeah.
going to happen when Allie leaves and they close the door.
I mean, one of the most childish things about Allie is the fact that she's not in the car saying, like, I hate my parents, they're awful, because they're awful. Like, the dad is borderline just saying to the mom, well, Daniel's not Jewish or black, and yet I hate him anyway. Isn't that funny, darling?
Darling, are Italian people white?
And dressed in that full 80s.
LaRusso, are you a Catholic? Oh, I'm not sure about that.
It was that or Elizabeth Shue's cheer moves. Not good.
Yeah, dude.
Cringy. Pretty cringy.
The backflip is one thing, or the back handstand, but the thing she does right before that, the weird
Yeah.
little jump in the air.
That weird
man.
little jump.
Yeah. That's like very much an awkward. But it's a good performance by her because she is, obviously beautiful and very charming, but she does a good job of coming off as awkward as hell because
Yeah.
she does like Daniel, and so she acts like a dork because that's what you do when you like somebody.
It's also hard to act or like do that gymnastic stuff with only one foot covered. Like Elizabeth Shue's would have been better. Mike, what is your 84 cringiest moment?
And it
Was
can't
it
be
that?
the joke you just made?
Was it that, Mike? Was it the thing that Ryan?
No,
Should
because I
be.
want points.
Oh yeah, points.
This is, and like, who knows how old people are supposed to be, but they generally do a good job at how old the high school kids look. Except, and maybe if we're being generous, this kid is also supposed to be in high school, but at the end of their date at Golf and Stuff, a random dude drives by to hit on Allie, and he looks like he's 35, like a coworker of her father. And he's like, hey, you want to get in the car? Like, one, it's cringy. For Daniel, again, we're feeling for the character, like, you're getting hit on a date, and isn't that awkward, and she doesn't shut it down enough. But also, it leads me to believe that Allie has dated this guy before.
Yes, she's very familiar with him.
Right.
And I was just like, why? And then they do it with Cobra Kai right after. So, like, why did he even have this guy? Why did this happen at all? Just to show, be like, Allie gets around with adults. Like, why do this?
Because it makes it, because everything is going. She's been like all green lights for Daniel.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love you, or I like you. I'm very interested in you. But this moment reminds Daniel that he feels like a boy.
Right.
He doesn't quite feel. He's like Mike. The thing is, he's still a karate kid. He's not Ryan. What would be?
He's not a karate adult.
He's not a karate adult.
But yeah, like, I mean, this is an 80s thing, too, of like the convertible, the sweater. I remember in the Goonies where the guy that grabs on to Josh Brolin's hand when Josh Brolin's on the bike, like that guy was 40 as well. You know?
Yeah.
It reminds me of the guy who takes out Jennifer Jason Leigh in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes,
Who's
thank
like
you.
the
Yeah.
like it's that kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
was trying to. I was like, this reminds me of a very specific moment. That's exactly what it is, Adam. Thank you.
Greg, those are two cringy moments. What do you got?
You know, this movie, like, this is some of my least cringing, and I think that you'd be like, well, come on, there's going to be something, and so I'm going to go with the thing that does kind of make me cringe, which is Mr. Miyagi's magic hands. But like, I think what I want is to excuse it, and so I do have this excuse in my head, which is that you give the people what they want. They see an older Japanese man, they think there's going to be some magic thing, even if all you're doing is rubbing your hands, touching the area, and then saying, okay, that's better, and then you let the people believe it, and they actually feel better. I have that headcanon-y thing in there, but at the same time, I'm not totally sure, and if I'm just 100% honest, that is part of the movie that makes me just like, did he just heal this kid's like broken leg with his magic hands? I don't know.
Yeah,
It does
and I
cause
think
me
the
to cringe.
music, unfortunately, the score.
Yeah.
The score hurts your argument because it makes it seem like something spectacular and magical is happening.
All good picks, but I'm going with Mike here. I don't know why that was necessary, and it made Allie seem weird. Greg, let's go with director's signature moment. What was Avildson?
Okay. A lot of people come on this show for different reasons, Ryan. Some people want the points. Some people want the glory. I want to seem smart, and so this is my attempt at that. When I think of this director, I think of his skill in the montage, the perfect marrying of music and action.
Which, like, if you don't have in the 80s, get out of here.
Yeah.
Go to the 90s.
But I think in response to the success of his use of montage in Rocky, he does something akin to an anti-montage in this, which is Daniel's training, although truncated because the nature of film is that we see things happen shorter than they happen in real life. Daniel's training is an extremely long, slow part of the movie. It's 10 minutes of the film is him sanding and painting and getting frustrated. I believe, and the music is very thin here. We do have Mr. Miyagi's like little leitmotif, which sometimes makes us feel a little uncomfortable.
Okay, we don't have to say leitmotif in everything.
Well, no, because I'm trying to get it in there.
That's
way
Greg's
to say
leitmotif is saying leitmotif as much as he can.
But I think that he's doing something here that is basically what I'm calling an anti-montage, which is that we as viewers are supposed to feel how arduous this is for Daniel, and that we do feel it. And when people talk about this movie, one of the things they will say is that it has pacing issues. I don't think that's true. I think this anti-montage is a choice, and we feel how slow it is because he wants us to feel how slow it is, because montage is kind of a lie, and it trains us to expect things to just happen instead of for us to experience. And although this still does happen a lot quicker than it would in real life, I think it translates the experience of actual training, actual hard work very well.
Another case of how patient this movie is, but also the least realistic depiction of a 16-year-old in this part where Miyagi comes home at the end of the night and Daniel's like, "Oh, you went fishing? I wanted to go fishing." No 16-year-old's going to be like, "Oh, man, I missed out on the fishing."
Hey, I'm going to say this one's over. I've never heard the term anti-montage before.
Yeah.
Give him the points. I don't know if I agree, but I love it.
Mike, you try to go against Greg.
It was a good argument, but as a Bildungsroman, I do think I'm also trying to sound smart, and it has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. But is it a word I remembered when Greg said leitmotif for the 80th time? Yes. I'm going to do the opposite, and this is a man we know because of montages, whether it's the Rocky theme while he's training or one of the worst 80s montage songs, so bad that Rocky 3 turned it down for a better song, Eye of the Tiger. You're the best while we're going around All Valley. That fucking has to be this guy's moment, for sure.
I love the idea of like, well, it can't be in this Avildson branch, but I have a big tree here.
I have another project.
I have a lot of branches.
Well,
Adam, what do you got?
Well, there's a moment that just perfectly exemplifies the Kuleshov effect. The Kuleshov effect. No, I'm just kidding. See, trying to go film school, since that's where we're going all of a sudden.
At the end, we're like,
all of a sudden, finally on this film podcast.
The montage, a training montage or any kind of montage in this film does feel like the right answer, right? If you're going off Rocky, there's even the beach training montage, which is right out of Rocky 3. And I think there's another moment that harkens back to that film, which is a famous moment from Rocky, is the "Cut Me Mick" moment. And isn't Karate Kid's version of "Cut Me Mick" him saying, "No, do it, like fix my leg, I want to go out and finish the fight." Like, Mick doesn't want to cut him, and Mr. Miyagi's like, "Oh, you've done fine, you don't need to go out there and prove anything." He's like, "No, I got to go out there, go ahead, do it, even if it hurts." So the "Cut Me Mick" version that we get here was going to be my answer, but I also want to sound smart and deep, so I'm not gonna quote other film school terms. But here's where I'm going, based again off of what little I do know about movies like Joe with Peter Boyle and some other stuff that John Avildson directed. The moment that stood out to me, because it's my favorite scene in Rocky. My favorite scene in Rocky is when Rocky gets super emotional on the staircase when Mick comes and now is willing to train him. And Rocky isn't having it, right? And he yells at him. He yells at him like, "What about my prime, Mick?" I can't do a Stallone. I'm not doing it. You have to get Matt Singer to do that. But he's so angry and he loses it. That male rage there in the moment. And I think the equivalent of that we get here is when he comes home after getting beaten up with his bike, and we see Daniel throwing his bike into the dumpster. And and think about how emotional he gets with his mom. I mean, he's crying and he's saying, "I hate this stupid bike. Why can't we just go home?" Like, he's kind of being a baby in that scene, but it's all justified. And I think for me, it just stood out as that moment where maybe I'm going to speculate that it's an Avildson thing to be willing to showcase that kind of male rage, but tinged with real vulnerability and real sensitivity. A moment when a man, or in this case, a karate kid, loses some control. Yeah, he loses some control. You know what else happens? I notice here, Rocky takes a beating. And so does Daniel. Think about how many shots we get of Daniel, like bloody and that black eye. Like, he doesn't just get a few scrapes. Like, he really gets beaten up. So, again, I think it all ties together with this idea of sort of male rage and vulnerability. That's my Avildson argument.
Fuck.
Yikers Island. Yeah, that is going to take it down there. But yeah, how important it is for, if you go see these, I don't know, like this. This might be sort of what, like, let's say, Mike's favorite director, Zack Snyder, is missing from his movies, is this one scene of this, male vulnerability. So, yeah, that is incredible. We have one more award. Typically, we try not to give it to the lead.
Yes.
Now, I would like you guys to give it to the lead, just to see how fun that is. Adam, start with you. Pound for pound performance in this movie.
Okay, I didn't know about this rule.
Yeah.
I did
It's
know
not a
about
rule.
this. I did know about this caveat, and I thought I was actually maybe going out on a limb by making the boring choice here. I mean, my first answer is Chad McQueen in The Crazy Eyes as Dutch. Like Dutch is my favorite character in the film. Just, I'm gonna say that.
Dutch said to his hairdresser, bleach it blonde, including the eyebrows.
Right. Yeah,
that's amazing,
guys. It is Ralph Macchio though. This is a classic William Goldman scenario. It's not really, but I'm still going to claim that, where everyone overlooks Tom Cruise because Dustin Hoffman has the flashier role as Rain Man. Macchio's a boring choice. You got Pat Morita just being a badass but hilarious, and you love everything about him. You love every moment he's on screen. But Macchio does actually carry the movie, and he's got that right amount of like Jersey moxie. He's scrappy. He steps in like he is the weaker man. He is the weaker kid, and we understand that, and we understand why he's the underdog, and he is the kid from the wrong side of the tracks, but he still is scrappy enough that like we believe him when he's like, "Oh, I got game." He at least takes he isn't like so shy that he just runs away from Allie. Like, he goes after her, right? And he stands up for her when Johnny is being mean to her on the beach. So that again adds to the chemistry. We've talked about that, I think, is a key element of this film. And again, too, what I just spoke to, that emotional vulnerability that comes through with Macchio as well. So, the fact that he's willing to at times act like a kid who's 15 or 16, even though he was 23 or 24 at the time, maybe he has to be the everyman, but he pulls it off, and we identified with him.
What scene we did not talk about, and I look at the list, it's like Sean Penn, Tom Cruise, so many people that like were up for this role. But one of the scenes that we did not talk about is that his mom has to go back to work, and he's left alone once again, because that's what happens when you're a kid with a single parent at the dinner table, and he discusses with himself how hot Allie is, and that's all charm and vigor. Like, it's so good.
I think he eats some parsley.
Yeah. He has a big chunk of broccoli, which if my mom is not in the room, I'm not eating broccoli.
No way.
Throwing that across the room.
Yeah. I'm gonna lick it and then throw it to the ceiling to see if it sticks. Mike, pound for pound performance.
Yeah, it's Ralph Macchio blew me away because as I love Cobra Kai, I think it's so good, and I was like, wow. And now seeing this guy forgot how to act, and maybe he took like a decades-long break, but man, that is how much skill. How many miles are Ralph Macchio's fastball between Karate Kid and Cobra Kai is bananas. And now it's my turn to be the boring choice that Adam, you made fun of. Pat Morita blew me away. And he hits all the notes. And again, it's, to me, the core of the movie is the scene of him getting drunk and reminiscing, but also laughing. and he puts on, he's not just grieving his family, he's grieving his past because he's wearing his uniform with the medals on it, and all of it, like being able to be sad and funny at the same time. Well, like you're leading this kid, but you're also now forcing him to do shots with you. All of it, I thought Morita sold.
He doesn't force him to do the shots. He just gives it the drink, and then Daniel just puts it down.
Yeah. Mike, was it weird to watch someone who is so stoic and incredibly like awesome, and then when they get drunk, they exposition all over you? Was that a weird experience for you?
It was weird. I've never seen that before in one of my best friends, Ryan.
Greg, Macchio and Morita are off the table.
Yes.
Or you could pick one of them.
I know. You know what? Then I'm just to put some flowers, just to give her flowers. I'm going to say Elizabeth Shue. And I don't think I respected this performance much when I was a kid, which is kind of weird because I was interested in girls even when I was a little guy, but I guess I was just so interested in the karate part of this movie. That's what I mostly focused on.
The one thing Greg likes more than girls.
Yeah, it's karate. Apparently,
to this day.
At least little Greg. Yeah.
Which means that Donald Trump currently likes karate more than girls.
But I will say that her performance is. I had a fresh set of eyes on it, and it really the vulnerability she has, like she so obviously is into Daniel, but at the same time, like there is a part of her because she's a girl in high school that is like a little bit there for the drama. Like she does bring up Johnny a lot to, and she's like, like, oh man, I'm tired of thinking about this guy. Oh, he's right over there. Oh, don't you worry about him. They're leaving the school, and she kind of like walks him right to Johnny. And so there's like, I thought like, well, that's in there too, right? And just like the way she leans up against Daniel sometimes, like to indicate to him like, hey, like I like you. I'm like looking at you. Like please see that obviously like you like I'm giving you all the signals here. I was really like, there's a subtlety to that she brings to this, and then her support of Daniel. I thought like that was a gear that Elizabeth Shue also had, and it's easy to look at the two lead male performances and get distracted, but she was really like a necessary third part of that tripod.
Real quick, underrated alley moment in the film is that beach scene when Johnny shows up. And I always thought it was weird. I never paid enough attention to it before, and it always seemed like just awkward to me, and now I got it. When she takes the ball from Daniel and she kicks it. Like it makes no sense. It felt to me as a kid like she was trying to kick it to him and she somehow just like booted it. And then of course you watch it now and you realize she saw Johnny was coming.
Yeah.
And so she kicked the ball far away.
Oh.
So that Daniel would get away from them.
Yeah. Because
she's already looking out for him. She knew what would happen.
Yeah.
She heard, wow.
Yeah.
The motorbikes are coming.
Right.
That is Adam, Greg, incredible arguments. But Mike is obviously taking that one down for one. Pat Morita as Miyagi. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to figure out who the winner was and talk about what's coming up next. Guys, we did it.
Woo!
I have the scores here. Greg.
Ah, shit. God damn it.
You never want to be mentioned first.
Of three people? There's no way. Sometimes if there's two of you, he'll like rope-a-dope you or something. It's never that you're the first of three.
I would never. Greg, 28 points.
That's not a lot of points, Ryan.
Is what Mike got. You got 27.
Oh, fuck.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Close.
That's so
Close.
rude. That
Way to
is
burn both of us.
But Adam, with 33 points, is going to take this down. And
I'm the
be
best
my
around.
friend for a week.
No one's going to ever take me down.
No one's going to ever take you down, buddy.
Well, I guess that proves that Adam is a better podcaster than me. And Ryan.
Yes, that's the competition here.
Finally, we have some way to determine that.
Let's get to the end of the year awards real quick. Is Pat Morita a slam dunk nominee for Best Supporting Actor or a slam dunk winner for Best Supporting Actor?
Slam dunk winner, man, and on-screen duo.
Yeah,
Watch
you
out.
got duo. We got shitheads.
This movie's full of duos. This movie's got duos for days.
Real quickly, I do want to say, Adam, thank you so much for being here. And if you want to, and I mean, like, this is the honor of your life, but if you want to plug your show real quick on our podcast.
People might not have heard of it, so.
This was a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I'd love it if anybody listening, if you haven't checked out Filmspotting, give us a try. We've been going since March 2005. So we're approaching 20 years of podcasting, missing only a few weeks here and there. And, we talk about big stuff like Furiosa coming up on our next show, but we talk about little stuff like I saw the TV Glow last week on the show, and we do marathons sometimes where we check out the work of filmmakers or regions of cinema that are blind spots for us, and we feel like we need to fill in, as part of our movie education, and listeners play along. So
give them a try, everybody. Just give them a chance.
Let's give them a little bit.
We'll take it.
The marathons are where it's at. Like, they're incredible about new movies, but like the marathons, they just wrapped up William Wyler, and because of their marathon, I watched Mrs. Miniver, which I was not happy with the two of you for doing that. That is one of the most propagandist, weirdly structured movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I got a chance to see it. I mean, like, guys, they're the #1 film podcast,
Well, I maybe in years podcasting, I'd like to get more listeners just like anybody else, guys.
So, all 13 of you,
get on out there.
Head over to Filmspotting.
Seriously, give them the old moody bump.
I'm just kidding.
That's what they call it.
We have 14 or 15. It's fine. But Adam, thank you so much for being here. That was awesome. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Coming up in the 1984 season, Paris, Texas.
Hell yeah!
You ever heard of it?
Oh.
I have. Ever been?
So
My
good.
favorite Paris.
They've got the Eiffel Tower.
So, Adam, all season long, we've been talking about Paris, Texas as the winner of this season, despite Mike and Greg having never seen it. Are they correct?
I don't even know anything about it.
Really? Well, have you guys talked about, I can't remember, you have done Spinal Tap already?
Yeah.
Have you done Amadeus already?
Not yet.
Okay, well, those are the only two films I have higher than Paris, Texas in my 1984 ranking.
Okay.
And Paris, Texas is a movie. We did an 84 series on Filmspotting, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. We talked about 8 movies from 84. And
shit!
Paris, Texas. Paris, Texas was like a bonus we did as a bonus episode for our patrons at the time. I hadn't seen it since college. Blown away. You guys really have something good in store with Paris, Texas.
I love how much it's built up.
Yeah.
2 of us think this thing. One of us does not because they're a hater. Is it possible that Stop Making Sense takes this whole thing down?
I mean, that's what I've got number 4 on the list, and I could jumble those up. I love all 4 of those films so much, and I was glad to hear on the Ghostbusters episode when you did the Mount Rushmore. And my first, don't get me wrong. Once I heard you say like Springsteen and Prince, that all made sense. They needed to be there. But the first image that popped into my head was David Byrne dancing and Stop Making Sense. So I'm glad that got thrown in. He got thrown in there into the mix. I think David Byrne was the 5th choice there, Ryan.
I think so. And then also we have a Hot Boys of 84 episode, Mount Rushmore, coming up that he might also be involved with.
He should be.
Man, there's an intensity to him. There really is.
Yeah, there is. I asked my wife if she thought he was hot, and she looked at me and ran away. Like, she couldn't even admit how hot she was. We have Paris, Texas coming up. We have Amadeus coming up. We have The Terminator coming up. We have Katie Walsh from the LA Times coming up. We have the boys from the Marvel Movie Minute coming up. Guys, it's going to be a hell of a season. For Adam, for Mike, for Greg, I am Ryan. Please listen to Filmspotting, and please keep watching those movies.
Yeah, thank you.